Hey Scuba Divers, and welcome to the first live stream from Scuba Diver magazine. As many of you are aware now, we are not publishing the magazine for the moment while everyone is in lockdown. So, just trying to find new and informative ways to bring you the same content that we would have in the magazine. So, starting from today, we're going to be talking about the future of diving with Scuba Travel. But on a Tuesday and a Friday, we are going to be bringing you the latest travel, the latest news, and the latest equipment content. So we're just trying to keep you guys engaged. We are trying to keep the diving industry moving forwards while everyone is twiddling their thumbs and dying to get back out and into the sport that they love. So today I have with me Mark Evans, editor-in-chief of Scuba Diver magazine. We also have Caroline, who's been with Scuba Travel for many years and is going to be answering some of your questions. And then we're also going to be talking to Mario, Scuba Travel's Photo Pro, about photography tips, photography workshops, and basically anything photography related. So if you have any questions, by all means, pop a comment in and we'll try and answer as many as possible. But before you do that, make sure if you're watching on YouTube, you hit the subscribe button down here in the corner, along with a bell. And if you're on Facebook, go ahead and give us a share so your friends know to come along and watch. So let me take this first moment to introduce Caroline from Scuba Travel.
Hello.
Hi Caroline, how are you?
I'm good. I'm good. How are you guys?
Yeah, not too bad. Now I have to be conscious that I need to look into the camera rather than looking at
Yeah, me
you
too.
on my computer screen, but we'll take it as it comes. So today we're going to be talking to you guys about the future of diving, and I guess for many, that have had their diving holidays cancelled or they have a holiday coming up and they just don't know what to do, maybe you can help give a little bit of guidance.
Yeah, of course. I think the thing to do at the moment is really to remember that everyone's trying their best. And if you were due to go on holiday and maybe due to go on holiday, just hang tight and be assured that nobody has forgotten about your holiday. I think in terms of where the schedules are, it's important to remember that at the moment, cancellations, as in your flight's not going ahead or your boat's not going ahead, those actually probably only run for a lot of destinations until around the middle of May or beginning of June. So if you've got holidays booked further than that, patience is a virtue. Just hang tight, and your boat operator, your holiday company, people like me, we will be in touch. We've definitely not forgotten anyone. We're reaching out to all our customers as and when they're affected in advance a little bit, just to say hi, let them know that they're on our radar, and then kind of trying to work through it on a one-to-one basis, because I think what we're all finding is there's no one solution that is going to work for absolutely every diver out there. So we're really trying to kind of have those conversations with everybody, really.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting, that the government guidance is been a little bit unclear, I think, for many, just in regards to refunds and vouchers. And as we discussed before the show, maybe you can just clear up, what people should do if they have had their holiday cancelled, or, just explain a little bit more about that and going forwards if they need to reschedule.
Yeah, of course. So, I mean, the first thing I would say is have a conversation with whoever you've booked things with. So it depends a little bit if you've booked through a company like ourselves, where you're ATOL or ABTOP bonded, or if you've gone ahead and made your own individual arrangements. Obviously, you are going to have more conversations if you've got more people that you need to talk to. For our customers, what we're looking at is what works for you. And so, obviously, some people have been absolutely brilliant. They're really understanding of the situation. They're keen to support the dive industry. At the end of the day, we all want to go diving again. And so rescheduling for a lot of people has been an absolutely brilliant option. And we're more than happy to look at moving your holiday into 2020, 2021, 2022, you know, nobody is, we all need something to look forward to, don't we? So nobody is out to penalise you for what's happening. You know, it's a bad situation for the dive suppliers. It's a bad situation for us guys, for you guys. So I think the key thing I would say is talk to your suppliers, talk to the people that you booked your holidays with, talk to the dive centres and the liveaboards, because there will be a solution there for you. If you can't reschedule, then some people have opted to take credit vouchers. And it depends a little bit on what you've booked and how you've booked it and who it's with, as to what sort of, bonding goes alongside that. So, for example, ABTOTs, if you book boats, that's a bonded option. In terms of refunds, that has obviously been in the news a lot recently, and I can understand why people are asking. It is a difficult area, only in as much as the processing times are so much longer than they would normally be. I think, you know, I've saw the airlines in the news this morning talking about it. With that side of things, particularly with airlines, refunds are being processed, but they're being processed in scales of weeks and months rather than days. So I think if you want to go down that route, then, you know, patience and understanding and just realizing that everybody is doing their best, but it's a difficult situation, and they're trying their best to get things sorted for you. We've been really lucky in that a lot of our divers have been very understanding, and so, you know, rescheduling is a great option if you can do it. You know, certainly the dive industry as a whole appreciates it.
Yeah, and just looking at some of the questions that are coming in here, if you do manage to get your holiday rescheduled and maybe you're on a liveaboard, you know, is social distancing still going to be implemented later on in the year? I guess we don't know, but there's going to be some sort of social distancing. Does that mean less numbers on boats, or, you know, do you have any idea on that yet?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, what a lot of the boat operators have been focusing on at the moment is actually using the opportunity at the minute to really kind of like take the boats apart, basically.
Yeah.
You know, lots of really deep cleaning going on, getting into all those nooks and crannies, giving the boats a refresh so that they are, you know, well up to standards and looking amazing and safe environments for when we can get back on them. I think there has been a tendency, it depends on what boats you're looking at, really. There is a tendency already in some countries for fewer divers and bigger boats. So there is an element of social distancing already going on. It's going to depend liveaboard to liveaboard what the solution is, I think.
Okay. And I guess going forwards, looking to sort of the future of diving, because everyone is desperate to get back in the water, aren't they? You know, I've been indoors for 7 weeks now because my wife is pregnant, and she is due to drop any day, and we was just trying to keep her away from everyone else. But like being stuck indoors with 2 children and a wife that is probably going to hit me for saying this, that can be quite cranky when she hasn't had any sleep. You know, I'm desperate to get back in the water. Where can I go? And is now a good time to book a holiday?
I think now is a great time to book a holiday. Obviously, I'd say that, but genuinely, I think it's really important to remember that the dive industry, we all do it because we love it. And out there are some amazing dive guides. There are some amazing dive centres, liveaboard operators. You know, think how good that chef is who manages to make all that food in a tiny kitchen. And we really want to keep that expertise in the industry so that it's there for when we can travel again. And so supporting the dive industry, if you're able to, is a really great way of doing that. Booking a holiday, showing them that you support them, giving them your confidence, that's really key. And I know that we really have been very appreciative to all our customers who've shown that support. The other things are things like, you know, booking now, you're able to pretty much lock in this year's prices. We might not be going on holiday, but it was all costed already. I think sort of listening to airlines talking on the news in particular, the reality of air travel is probably going to mean that flights, for example, become more expensive once they go back onto sale for 2021, possibly. So booking now, you can probably avoid some of those price increases that are going to come, I'd imagine, down the line. The other thing is, I mean, I've never seen this. I've been doing this job for a long time, but we are trying. I mean, we understand it's an uncertain time, and you probably don't want to put a deposit down at the minute on a holiday for next year. So now at the moment, you can book holidays with zero deposit, which is a brilliant way of kind of finding a date in the diary, holding yourself a space, having something to look forward to, but without putting that financial commitment down. And, you know, we've got holidays to the Red Sea, the lovely whirlwind and hurricane. You can bag a spot on that for no money at the moment. And then when travel reopens, we'll give you a call and see if you still want to go.
Yeah, I think it's important to say, you know, if you can do it and you've not been affected by the virus, you know, and you love diving and you've got some people that you go to year in, year out, you should really speak to them and see, you know, if you can help by booking a holiday now for next year, but only if you can afford it, you know.
Yeah, for sure.
If somebody is offering you a voucher and you don't need the refund, you know, help that business out by taking the voucher. You know, as long as we're sensible about the way we go and do things, I think, you know, we can get through this. You know, it's all about just thinking logically and not trying to all go inwards. So,
and I think that's what we're really trying to work on, is those very individual conversations, because everybody's got very different circumstances at the moment.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's really important to us as a company, but also as divers, that we find the right solution for every individual. So if you have got a holiday booked for later in the year and you're wondering why you've not heard from us, it's because we're dealing with the guys who we're talking to from April and May at the moment. You know, we've
a few weeks ahead, not months ahead.
Yeah.
With all the issues with the airlines, you know, may not be lasting or may going under. Is that going to cause an issue with flights and flight availability?
You mean sort of who the options are to travel with?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the likes of BA, they reckon they can only last another 8 months in the current situation, and Ryanair are already shedding lots of jobs and flights when we return. You know, I think you guys use EasyJet, don't you?
Yeah, we've got EasyJet, who are they're all set, and they've got their schedule out well into 2021.
I think EasyJet were probably the one that could last the longest.
And TUI are pretty good as well.
Yeah.
I mean, I think the travel industry's always been very good at adapting. You know, nobody's seen global pandemics before, but routes come on, routes go off. I think it's going to depend a little bit on whether you're looking at short haul travel, long haul travel, and who those airlines are that you can book with. But certainly if you are anxious about airlines, remembering that if you book an atoll bonded holiday, so that's from someone who's putting your flights and your diving together, you will get the protection of the CAA in the case of an airline going bust, for example. So
yeah, if they are atoll bonded and the company goes bust as a whole, they will be covered for that holiday.
Yeah, your atoll give you a financial protection in the event that your supplier becomes insolvent. So if you remember Thomas Cook, for example, the CAA, who are the guys that organise atoll, they organised that massive repatriation of everyone for the Thomas Cook. And actually, most Thomas Cook customers were able to complete their holidays pretty much as they'd scheduled. So, you know, doing things in that way, being a little bit clever about how you're supporting the industry, how you're planning your travel, and maybe buying something that is a package is a slightly better option, I think, if you are anxious about individual parts of your holiday not working out long term.
Yeah, sure. I'm just going to take one question as well before we move to the next section. The Dive Line podcast make a good point. You know, although we might be out of our restrictions, there are going to be many other countries that are either ahead of us or behind us or have a different view on what is acceptable. How are you guys managing that at the moment?
So I think it's absolutely true. When you're looking at whether you can go on holiday anywhere, diving or not, there's going to be what the UK government says, and then there's also going to be the country that you're going to and what regulations are in place there. And I think this is something that the airline industry as a whole are probably going to work quite well together on. If you think about the security measures that we all sort of got used to now, with having your bag scanned and taking your shoes off, those are pretty much the same everywhere in the world. And so I think what we'll see over the next few weeks is a sort of global agreement as to what checks and balances will be in place for passengers traveling and when they arrive in another country. Which countries, it's a bit of a crystal ball at the moment. I mean, the reality is, if you can't go somewhere because it's not safe, no self-respecting, I would not be telling you have to get on a plane. People aren't going to send you somewhere if it's not safe for you to go there. So whilst I can't give you a list of which ones, I mean, there's a list, I think, but I can't really tell you.
It's just an ongoing thing at the moment. But
it is a little bit early.
It brings us nicely into our next section, and I am going to bring Mark Evans, editor of Scuba Diver magazine, in, and also Mario, and we're going to talk about the best places to go diving for when we are allowed to go diving again, and who knows when that's going to be.
Well, it's more than just a pond.
Yeah. So Mario, very much into photography and photo trips, and Mark, while he has travelled the world, is very much into his UK diving and loves to get in even the shallowest puddles as often as possible. So I think when this does finish, I don't think people are going to be travelling straight away. So there's going to be maybe a lot of staycations coming up over the next couple of months. And, Mark, where would you suggest that sort of people do that in the UK, and where are the best places to dive?
Yeah, well, that's it. I think you're right. Once these restrictions start to let us out of lockdown, it's not going to happen overnight and get back to any sort of semblance of normality. So it's going to be step by step. But obviously, the first places we're going to be able to go is some diving around the UK coast. The inland sites, they're a different matter, because obviously we know how busy they can get on a weekend. So whether or not, once things start to change, they're allowed to open with reduced numbers to keep the social distancing, whether or not that's even viable or feasible for them to do that, we will have to see what the rules are like going forward. But I would imagine, if we're like some of the other countries that started doing a bit of a release on lockdown, they're allowing smaller group gatherings. So I could see people being able to go to the coast, meeting up with 2 or 3 buddy teams, and go off the coast of Scotland, Wales, south coast of England. There's plenty of shore diving sites where you can easily get yourself in the water. There's places like the Farne Islands where you can get in with the seals. I mean, that's world-class diving. You can go off the Cornish coast, get basking sharks, blue sharks. We've got all sorts of stuff around the UK that a lot of people forget about. I think what I'd like to see is all the hardcore UK divers who I know that they are just wanting to get out there again. They're wanting to be in UK waters, whether it's inland, on the coast, wherever, is get them to try and get one of their tropical diving friends to take the plunge in the UK, because we all want to go diving in warm waters. We all want to get on that plane and go off on our dream destinations again. But while we can't, let's try and get as many people diving as we can. So if we can get some people who've never dived in the UK to try it, you never know, we might get more people hooked on what we've got off our shores.
Yeah, well, you've had me in the cold waters of the UK, and I admit I openly don't dive in the UK because it's too cold and too murky, but we will see.
Yeah, but as we know, there's some of the shallow waters around. I've only ever really taken you into the quarries and everything just because I can be evil like that. But if we get you off some of the coastal sites in the shallows, I took my son off the coast of Treorder Bay in Anglesey last year. We didn't get any deeper than 5 meters, but we saw common lobsters, various crabs, shrimps, dogfish, jellyfish, all sorts of stuff. And it was warm enough we were in a wetsuit. So you don't even necessarily need to be in a dry suit if you're in the middle of summer. Now, we obviously don't know when the restrictions are going to relax. I'd like to think that maybe the back end of summer, we might be seeing the ability to get in the water. But I just think anything that we can do to get divers out there, and as UK divers, if we, hardcore UK divers, if we can try and get more of the traveling divers to do it, it's good because it keeps them diving, and then they'll be more than ready for when they can travel again.
Yeah, and I think it's important to keep up those skills. You know, you don't want to just not dive for a whole year because otherwise, you know, things happen, don't they? You let your kit just sit there and not get serviced, and you know, it can be bad for everyone.
Yeah, and it's a perfect time at the moment to get your kit ready. While we can't go diving at all at the moment, is support your local dive centres. A lot of them they're not open for you to go in and be buying things and strolling around the shop and catching up for a cup of tea with them, but a lot of them are still doing equipment servicing, so you can drop your gear off, get it all serviced and everything, get it all picked up, and you'll have it ready for when you can go diving. So it's a prime time. If your regs are languishing from last year, you haven't had them done. And then also don't forget things like BCDs need a service as well. So if you perhaps never had that done, get everything sorted, get it ready to go. And as soon as you're allowed out, you're ready to hit the ground running.
Yeah, cool. Well, that's enough about UK diving because it's a bit cold for me. Let's talk about somewhere a bit more tropical. Mario, you've been all over the world, so where are your favourite places to dive, and what do you reckon is going to be the go-to place for the end of 2020 if we're allowed to dive, or 2021?
Well, probably one of the best places for diving is still, in my opinion, Egypt, and especially after a period of no divers and with no boats or anything, I think the Red Sea is going to be an absolutely phenomenal place to dive. Just thinking what happened back in 2011 after the revolution, and the way the reefs in Egypt just came back to life in a short period. I think we're gonna be able to go back and dive. The quality of the dive and the quality of the encounters are gonna be absolutely phenomenal, and definitely is probably my gonna be my first dive trip if I can make it. Otherwise, there's very good places a bit further afield, places like the Philippines, as long as they can open the travel in those areas. There's some very, very good places to visit, places like Malapascua, around Cebu. There's a place called Kasai Village, and very interesting blackwater diving, stuff like that. So it's not places that we are obscure, that quite difficult to find, but the classics I think are going to be the best places to visit for many
Yeah.
reasons. Obviously, as I say earlier, the quiet period is going to allow the reef to come back to life, and a lot of big fish that normally are quite timid and just tend to go either deeper or further in blue water. They're going to come back to the reef, but also is where the dive industry is ready to receive customers again and divers again.
Yeah, and I think we've already started to see that the Earth is healing while we've been all hibernating in our houses. The air has become cleaner. The ozone layer is starting to repair itself, and we're starting to see wildlife where we just wouldn't see wildlife anymore. So once we get back in the water, and I know Caroline, we was talking about this the other day. It should be much better for marine encounters, because just things have had chance to recover.
Yeah, and I think, as Mario says, it's some of those things that maybe keep a bit more distance. I mean, I'm noticing blackbirds landing on the roof of my car at the moment. So obviously, like, they're coming closer, let alone anything big underwater. So I think, for me, some of the key destinations that we're keeping an eye on are places that are on direct flight routes, because that kind of makes sense. So that's, as Mario said, Egypt, the Red Sea, also places like the Maldives, because you can get a direct flight there. It keeps life nice and simple if you can get on in the UK and just get off in your destination. But you can also go to places like the Philippines on a direct flight now. So it is worth thinking about some of those slightly further afield things. And I think, I mean, the sightings, they are just going to be great. Like, without you'll see that whole ecology working the way it's supposed to work without being interrupted, and right down from the really small stuff up to the big stuff. And I would expect to see that in just about any destination that you pick, to be honest, because at the moment, nobody's really diving anywhere.
No, this is very true. Apart from some silly people, as you know, you probably noted on
on the south coast.
the Scuba Diver news page the other day, costing the taxpayer lots of money to go out for a quick dive and then getting lost. But there's no help for stupidity, is there?
No, and I mean, we're all doing what we can at the moment. We're staying at home, we're staying safe, and we're waiting until it reopens. But it doesn't mean we can't dream. I mean, we kind of been fighting in our house about, do you go for, you know, that cheeky quick week in the Red Sea because it's nice and easy and it'll be great? Or do you think, hang on a minute, I shelved all my plans for sort of spring and you go big? So, you know, I'm thinking, Raja Ampat or the Galapagos or Socorro, you know.
Yeah.
Doesn't hurt to dream.
No, and you know, we're in the diving industry, and Mark travels a lot, and I try and tag along with him as much as possible. But most of our trips have been curtailed for this year. But we still dream of those big trips and going to Truck and places like that.
Exactly.
You know, you need to have a bit of imagination there to keep you alive, especially when you're locked indoors all the time. Mark, where would you go when this is over?
I think I probably would be heading for Egypt. I mean, I love Egypt. You know, I've been 50 odd times now over the last 20 odd years.
I think there's a little bit of bias here. Everyone seems to be saying Egypt.
Yeah, but it's great.
The thing is, though, is it north or south? See, that's the other argument we've been having, because we can't, you know, some days I'm like, Jackson, I miss Jackson, you know, and then other days, Daedalus.
That's been closed, isn't it?
Well, I mean, just because, you know, we can't go at the moment. And Jackson's one of my favourite places. I mean, that coral garden is just amazing. Yeah. But then I've had some amazing dives at Daedalus, like with mantas and hammerheads and it all kicking off. And you know, what do you do? Do you go for the big stuff and the exciting adrenaline, or do you go for the really pretty? I mean,
no, we're in for big stuff. We want to see big stuff. Yeah, big stuff and wrecks. None of this.
You're going north then.
Big stuff and wrecks.
Yeah, look, Diveline agree with me. They're like, Daedalus is the ultimate. I mean,
absolutely, Daedalus is probably one of my favorite reefs because you have beautiful reefs, but also that constant chance to just turn around and have hammerheads. I remember a dive we did a couple of years back. Within 5 minutes, we had hammerheads, mantas, treasures, and grey reefs. So,
it was really on fire.
See, now I've not had the pleasure of doing it yet because I get terribly seasick. And I tried a liverboard with Aquacat with Mark a few years back, and it was like the worst 7 days of my life. Not because the diving was rubbish or the boat was horrible. It was just in the water, out the water, asleep. In the water, out the water, asleep.
Sounds like heaven to me.
Just to get over the seasickness.
Nothing wrong with that.
I just wanted to pick up Derek on the live comments and said, don't forget the Caribbean, which is actually also on my list. I would definitely say it's another destination from the UK where you can get there on a direct flight. So you've got direct services into places like Mexico, the Bahamas, Caymans, St. Kitts. There's actually quite a good network, and resorts. There's some brilliant dive resorts out there. Some really unique dives. Cenotes. I mean, must appeal to you boys, the cenotes.
Yeah.
Very, very interesting. Brilliant diving there in Mexico.
Well, what about the US, Mark? I know you've done Florida and sort of that South Coast and the Panhandle.
Yeah, I was going to say, I mean, that was Caribbean was actually the next direction I was going to say after the Red Sea. I mean, I love Egypt and it's very easy to get to, 5-6 hour flight and you're there. But as Caroline said, there's lots of places in the Caribbean and into the States where it's a direct flight and then you're there. So I was going to suggest Grenada because I love my wrecks. I like big animals, but I like big wrecks as well. So Grenada's great because there's 20 odd wrecks sunk off of there. You've got direct flights in. So that's a great dive site. Obviously the Bahamas, like Caroline mentioned. But yeah, the States, if you fly into Miami and drive down the Keys, I mean, it's like the ultimate drive and dive vacation down the Keys because you're going from island to island, but you can drive there with your wet kit in the back of your car. And you've got everything from the Spiegel Grove at the northern part at Key Largo, and then as you go down, you've got some good wrecks, the Eagle, the Thunderbolt, things like that. And then when you get down to the Key West at the tip, you've got the Vandenberg. So you've got some great wrecks there. And then if you decide to go up to near Pensacola, you can go and dive the aircraft carrier, the Oriskany, which is probably the easiest aircraft carrier to get to in the world.
Yeah, in itself is about a week's worth of diving as well.
Yes, it is rather large.
Cool. Well, I think that rounds out that segment, and I think anyone that's interested in looking for a holiday for next year, we do Scuba Diver Destinations, which is our travel magazine for the US and North America as a printed publication, but you can read it digitally online, and I will leave a link to that in the comments below. It's applicable to pretty much anyone in the world because it just covers information about the destinations and the resorts, so how you get there is entirely up to you. Now, for the last segment, we're running a bit ahead of schedule, so it gives Mario more time to talk about photography, and I know he loves talking about photography. So if you have any photography questions, by all means, pop them in the comments, and we'll try and get Mario to answer them. But I'm going to put you over to Mario now, and he's going to talk to you about some photography. I don't know if you want to do your screen share first, Mario, or...
Yeah, why not? But basically, what I want to mention is the for a lot of underwater photographers, the difficult thing is when they go on a trip is diving with a group of non-photographers. It tends to be quite hard for everyone else because obviously you have the people that want to visit the reef at a certain speed, but also when you want the photographer want to stop and have a look and work a subject and spend some time with the subject. And that's why we normally recommend people that are interested in photography, and that photography is the main, or not the main reason, but a strong component of the diving, to go on a photography trip. Doesn't have to be a workshop. There's obviously this workshop when you can learn a lot of techniques and things, but a photography trip where you're diving with photographers and makes the whole thing much more enjoyable. I personally tend to do quite a few trips again to Egypt because it's easy, it's quick, and as we were talking to Karen and Mark Jackson, Reef is, from a photographic point of view, quite an interesting. Not the easiest reef to photograph, but definitely a great place with beautiful corals. A lot of chance to see turtles, and also very easy in the north. Well, not specifically in Jackson, but in the north. Very good chance to encounter dolphins. So all in all, it gives you a lot of opportunities to see very good subjects. I run also a photography trip in the south that is called Coral Craters and Caves, that combines fish portraits, combines caves, and combines just general reef and beautiful coral. So it's a very interesting trip to get along. Daedalus always offers the good chance to see the big pelagic sharks and that kind of things. Turtles quite often. Hammerheads are very common there and can be quite tricky to photograph. So if you're in a normal non-photographers group, can be quite hard to get those shots. Very good for mantas as well, especially around spring. So next year, late May, I'm organizing this trip based on previous experience when I was working there as a dive guide. May is when the plankton comes up, makes the visibility a little bit tricky because of the amount of nutrients in the water. But it's when you can see this massive mantle just coming to the offshore reefs and just feeding around there and ignoring the divers. So it's quite a nice, interesting thing to do. Honestly, you always have the oceanic white tips around, especially towards the back end of the year. This one in particular was taken around July, if I'm not wrong. But we've seen them pretty much all year round lately, so it's quite a good subject to photograph. Normally, the trip starts in an area called Abu Dhabi, where you have very interesting caves, and it's a good place to work with ambient light, and just try to work that kind of depth in your picture when you have the blue wood outside, the dark bit of the cave, and subs in the front. Also very good for fish portraits, stuff like that. And turtles. Normally, all these trips we finish them with turtles. Try to photograph green turtles in the shore close to Mars Island. So it's a nice way to do that.
I love a turtle photo as well. It's
Right.
one of the things that I always make Mark take pictures of when we're diving together.
Absolutely. Turtles are some of the cutest creatures around there. And if you approach them quite carefully, they just stay there and they allow you to take pictures of them.
Yeah, definitely. And they do make good subjects when they want to be playful.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Just if you grab them when they're eating, normally it's very good way to get them. Obviously, it's important to have good etiquette because if the animal is the turtle is eating and like 20 divers just descend on the poor creature, it's gonna go away. So it's quite it's quite good idea to just respect and go in, take a couple of shots, just move away, let someone else come in, take the pictures, and then move away, and don't have 20 people just blasting the stroke.
Social distancing, see?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what tips do you have for people that are not able to get in the water with their camera at the moment and it's just sort of sitting there?
Well, there's a lot of things you can do. One of the things that I do quite often is just set up the kit and take it apart. And once you can just give a little bit of maintenance to your O-rings, grease them, and make sure everything is nice and clean. But also you can help building that muscle memory of getting the kit all together. Take a couple of pictures, just get used to that so you don't forget where the buttons are, because the worst thing is just go on a dive trip, you set up your kit, jump in, and when the situation arrives that something comes by and you don't know exactly which button to press, it's very easy to get the shutter, but if you need to change the settings, it can be quite tricky. As Karen just raised her hand, yeah, that's pretty much Karen quite often, but she doesn't play with a camera that often, so it's very easy to forget how to program and how to use the camera.
So Dave Hart is saying Paralens or GoPro for beginners. I guess Dave, that's really for photography, for videography.
Yes,
I think you can do stills on a GoPro, which
you can take the stills with a GoPro. As video cameras, they are very similar. I haven't had the chance to use the latest GoPros, but all in all, I do like the Paralens. I do like the way Paralens correct the colors automatically and the hydrophone. So it is in many ways a bit simpler to use than the GoPro. You don't have all the different menus and it's easier to access. So I do like the Paralens, but both cameras are very good to start with. In terms of photography, they're quite limiting because you don't have a lot of control over the lighting. So it can take some snaps, but it's not the kind of camera that will give very good results in terms of stills on the water.
what would you suggest for somebody that wants to get into photography? What should be their sort of starting setup, and should they rent something before committing to buying something, because it can be quite an expensive.
Quite expensive, and rentals tend to be quite difficult. If they go to a dive center that have some rental cameras, by all means, just rent one. If they're renting a camera, probably there's a Photo Pro on site that will give them some tips of how to use that particular camera. Definitely do not go straight in for interchangeable lens cameras, either mirrorless or SLRs. That is a huge investment, and especially if you haven't done underwater photography, you may just not like it and just throw away enough money to go for a couple of holidays. So definitely,
I think that's the problem, isn't it? You know, it's quite expensive.
Is ideal, and there's a couple of compact cameras that are relatively inexpensive. Unfortunately, phones destroy that segment that used to exist a few years back in the early 2000s. With them, we used to have the compact market and used to be quite big. You have plenty of models and a relatively low cost. Nowadays, there's no many compact cameras out there that allow you to use in the water, but there's quite a few. There's some Olympus ones, there's some Canon, there's some Sony, which are not bad at all. And they, without having to invest a lot of money, you can have very good results. And there's something that we get into the water photography very easily.
Would you ever suggest, you know, you've seen the camera cases now for the iPhone certainly, or other phones, would you ever suggest those as a starting point, and then using software to clean up the image post, or?
Yes, absolutely. You can. There's some the very interesting houses for iPhones and I mean Samsung camera phones and all of that allow you to do quite a lot of things in terms of controlling the exposure and even use external filters to correct the color. And if I'm not wrong, there's one in particular that allow you to use a flash or a video light also quite easily. So
Yeah.
you can build up around the phone. My only worry doing that is if by any chance there's a flood, you just don't lose the camera, you lose half of your life.
Yeah, this is true.
Quite difficult.
Yeah. Caroline, this is probably one for you. Scuba Spuddy's asking, you know, he wants to go on a photo trip, but his wife doesn't dive. Are there places where they could both go, where he could dive and she could do surface activities?
For sure. It depends really. So when we have, my first question is always, does she want to lie on the beach, buy a pool, go to the spa, read a book? You know, is it kind of, that's her idea of a perfect holiday? Or is she someone who's a bit more kind of, I want to get up and I want to get busy and do land exploration activities? There's some amazing resorts out there where you can really do as much or as little as you want. So, I mean, the Maldives actually is not a bad place, although for photographers, the currents can make it a bit more challenging. So other destinations I would suggest, yes. Which one, Scuba Spud? The destinations I would suggest are, there's a lovely resort in the Philippines called Atmosphere, and they've got a nice balance between kind of the yoga, chill out, spa, margarita by the pool, with doing cooking activities. There's cycling tours, you can visit the local markets. The other destination that's a good option is in Manado. So around that Bunaken area, you've got the lovely resort at Siladin, and Murex and Lembe, actually. Those guys all do really lovely holidays, amazing photography, and non-divers looked after really well. So you can snorkel, you can, as I say, cooking classes, there's so many activities. Siladin's got a beautiful beach as well, which is quite unusual. And I know we've mentioned it a couple of times already, but the Caribbean, you know, there's a lot to be said for enjoying a rum cocktail and a bowl of guacamole on a Mexican beach somewhere. I mean, I think that's why I like Mexico.
Yeah.
So I think it just depends. You have to be really clear and honest about how much activity you really want to do, because some places like the Maldives, you know, once you're on an island in the Maldives, you've got beautiful hotels, beautiful beaches, but there's there's very limited other activities because you're not really going to get off the island.
Cool. Mario, Duncan Lord is asking, what's the best way to determine which filter to use? I'm guessing this is on sort of GoPro style.
Yeah, GoPros work because the camera cannot correct the color cast of the water. Then you have to use a filter. Use blue water, use a red filter. If you go green water, use a magenta filter. The TG4 camera allows you to do some color correction. You can do some manual white balance. Will reduce the need to use a filter. Obviously, you can use the filter to help the color correction. One thing that I would say regarding filters is because the filter is a physical barrier that goes in front of the lens, it may just reduce the amount of ambient light that the camera can see. And that will have other repercussions in terms of having to increase the ISO or lower the shutter speed, which at this time cause camera shake. So with the TG4, I will not concentrate that much on filters, but more on custom white balance. And if it doesn't work, just think about probably a light. But if you definitely want to do the filter, then it depends on what kind of environment you're diving. UK and green water, use a magenta filter. If going to blue water, Caribbean, Red Sea, in the Pacific, a red filter. The filter works at a certain depth. If you're going quite deep diving, a strong color cast filter is quite important. Shallow water, I would use a relatively weak filter for that one. The magic filters work quite well, but you have to use them inside the housing or just stuck with the tape to the camera. Otherwise, you can use the screw fit filters, but they tend to be quite a fixed amount of color and work at about 10 meters, 10, 15 meters.
Cool. Hopefully that answers Duncan's question. If you have any other questions, guys, let us know. Mark, I don't know if you want to ask anything of the travel guys while they're here.
Well, I was just going to pick up, actually. We talked about having your equipment, your dive equipment serviced while we can't actually go diving. Is it worth getting your camera equipment sorted as well? Now, I know it's slightly different, and there's obviously some stuff that you can do yourself. So you could give it a good long soak in the water to get rid of any residual salt. You could give it a really good, I mean, I do it periodically on mine where I really give it a good clean in all the gaps where the O-rings go, because it obviously gets grubby in there. And I'm perhaps not quite as diligent as some people are in cleaning it every single time. So it's a good time to get that all done. Now, I'm not suggesting that people dismantle their strobes and everything themselves, but is there anything that people could maybe do to give their stuff an overhaul? Or is there anything that's worth sending in, again, to any of their specialist dive shops to get sorted out?
Well, if you can send the housing to be serviced, and if you haven't done it in a while, and most people don't do that kind of thing, sending the house to be serviced, it is a good idea. I know there's a couple of guys that do equipment servicing, and you can get your strobe servicing, but that is not that important. But it's important to make sure that your O-rings are properly clean and greased. Don't let the O-rings dry. When you store it, remove the O-rings, keep them in a Ziploc bag with a little bit of grease. And if you're not using it every couple of months, 2-3 months, just give that a quick clean. Don't overstretch them, obviously. Keep them nice and moist. And another thing that I always do is get your rechargeable batteries and recharge them, because they just start losing charge. And it's always a good idea to keep the cycle going. So if you leave the batteries on charge for long period, they start losing the capacity, and then you realize that the battery set that used to allow you to take pictures for like a couple of dives will last half a dive.
And that's if they don't leak and corrode as well.
Yeah. No, but yeah, just get all your rechargeable batteries, give them a good charge. Your camera battery, give it a good charge. If you have the option to just drain them, either with any device, especially with the AA, which is quite easy, just drain the batteries with a torch. If you have a video light, set it up, put it in cold water, leave it on until the battery just gets completely drained, and then recharge it from scratch. that will preserve the life of the battery as well.
Cool. Thanks for that.
Good
Caroline, have you got any last words for people looking to travel?
Generally, yeah, go when it's safe. I mean, I think we're really lucky, aren't we? We work in an amazing industry, and it's just filled with people who love what they do. And I think the thing I would say is, if you've got a holiday booked, you're looking to book a holiday, personally, I would say have a conversation. If you've got concerns about your balances, talk to the people who you're buying your trip from. If you aren't sure about booking a holiday because you feel uncertain at the moment, there's a lot going on, there's a lot of variables still up in the air, phone them up and have a chat. I think we will all get through it better if we kind of keep talking and we know where we are with each other, because we're actually quite a small, close-knit industry, and we're all out here to support each other, because at the end of the day, our goal is to get diving, and it's not UK or overseas. As Mark said, a lot of us do everything, do both. Even I might do a bit of UK diving this summer, maybe.
Yeah.
Although my dry suit doesn't fit.
No, well, I do have a dry suit. As I say, I'm not a big fan of UK diving, but I understand why people do love it. It's
There's
just
some amazing encounters.
Yeah, and I definitely will be getting in the UK water once this is over, and maybe I will begin to love it a bit more. I don't like the cold, and I hate being cold.
Well, but I think the important thing is, think about how you can support the industry, stay
definitely
active, and have conversations with people about diving. And if you've got concerns, pick up the phone, answer emails, because at the end of the day, we're here to help you, and we're all trying to get through it together, really.
Well, thank you for your time. It's been great talking to you. Hopefully it's been informative for the people that have been watching, and hopefully they will now be able to go forward and look at either sorting out the holiday that they've got booked already, or book one for the end of this year. So thank you very much. We're going to be back on Tuesday, or Mark is going to be back with John Kendall and Phil Short. I don't know if you want to give the guys a bit of an overview what you're talking about, Mark.
Yeah, it's basically going to be a virtual fireside chat with these two tech diving legends. It's quite interesting that they both had very different roles and routes into the diving world, but they both kind of ended up doing very similar things, really into their archaeological and scientific diving. And they both ended up on wrecks that are very close together. But I won't tell you anymore. I'll let them go into the details of that. But it's sure to be an interesting one, because they have done some pretty epic dives, and we'll be finding out about what they've been up to, what's coming up. And again, we'll be opening the floor up to questions from viewers. So if anyone wants to find out anything from John and Phil, tune in.
I think it's important to say that is 8 p.m. Tuesday night, and it's going to be a drink-along session. So make sure you have your beer, your wine, your spirit with you, because everyone's going to be getting drunk while we do this. Is that right?
Exactly. Makes it far more enjoyable. It's like being in the pub with your mates. That's the idea.
Yeah. So make sure you tune in. If you're on YouTube, make sure you hit the subscribe button and the bell. Give us a thumbs up if you enjoyed this program. If you didn't like it, give it a double click on the thumbs down. And make sure you like our Facebook page. And we will see you again soon.